Welcome to Booking It. Today's podcast will feature a lot of books that we've been reading. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Booking It. I'm of course your eloquent host, Cooper Cobbs, and joining me today is my very good friend, Mr. Tanner Lewis. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
And featured over on the Screening Podcast is my wonderful cousin, Mr. Hayden Hayes.
It's your favorite comic reading, banana peeling, Koopa cousin of the year. What's up, my homies?
He's working on that like all day. So, anyway, welcome back, everybody. We're so glad that you're able to join us. Honestly, we're so glad that we're able to record because we understand that it's been a while. It's been a drought. So we're here. We're back. We're talking about a lot of things. But first, this is a book podcast, so we're talking about movies. So, Tanner, you said you watched Mission Impossible?
I just watched Mission Impossible, what was it? Yesterday afternoon, actually.
Yesterday? Okay.
So I'm coming off of the movie theater high, and I personally believe that this was one of the best, or at least within the top 5 best movies that have come out since 2019.
Since 2019, okay. Okay, we'll be in that list.
Ooh, I know. I've had to think about it. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 can be in there. Because it's the best Marvel movie that has come out since that period of time.
Facts.
I think that
2019 is I would say is not a good place to start because 2019 is a lot.
I kind of meant like starting after 2019,
like since
moving
COVID.
past 2019, the movie high
right.
of the past 10 years. You know, yeah.
Right.
But starting in 2020, moving towards where we are now, I would definitely say that is like within the top 2.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Me and Hayden and I just did a podcast over on the Screening that you can go listen to, but I talk about Mission Impossible over there as well. And anyway, I'll give the short version here. There's like a couple that I was sitting next to in the theater, and they were just hilarious. It was like they were watching it on their sofa at home. Like, that's how bad it was. It was really funny and annoying, but it was pretty classic. So
it's hilarious.
All right. Well, any other details we need to get out of the way? I mean, summer's been going good, and it's kind of coming to an end here, but it's
Tanner's
going.
finally back home for the summer.
It's going.
You know, he's for the record.
The plane has finally landed. It's been circling for a long
I've
time.
been gone for a month and a half out of this summer. I think the total was 6 weeks or 7 weeks of my summer, of which I only had about 12. So that puts it in perspective. Finally back home. Really appreciate that. You guys, beds are amazing. You hike in the wilderness for a week and you realize that pillows and comforters are something that should not be trifled with.
Yeah, I was on a mission trip in the UK, and they had us in North England sleeping basically inside what was effectively a large wedding tent, and I was on a wood pallet with a blow-up mattress and a sleeping bag for 8 days. So it was very nice to sleep in
luxury
for sure. But right now, evidenced by the stranger on the podcast, our cousins are hanging out because it's cousin camp time for the summer. We've been doing some hard labor this morning, haven't we, Hayden?
They put us to work, and by work I mean, I don't know, I mowed the lawn and Cooper did nothing. You tried to work a weed eater, it took you like 5 hours.
That's a lot of work.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Basically, my parents are like, free labor.
Hey, that's what my parents thought when I got home. You know.
That's why your parents have so many kids, Tim.
You know, I got back, I kid you not, I got back on Sunday morning, and I slept all day Sunday because I didn't sleep in the bus, you know, stupid move on my part, but, you know, I don't care.
Right.
But come Monday, it's time to go, folks. Yesterday, I was up at 6 a.m., and we got started mowing and weed eating one of our properties, and we weren't done until about 10:30 when I proceeded to go to a meeting. And then we went and watched Mission Impossible, you know,
there you
just
go.
A normal day in the life of Tanner. It sounds like I'm a grown man, but, you know, I'm really not.
Yeah.
I made no money off of that day, but, you know.
Yeah. Tanner's basically been on UPTO this entire summer.
Yeah, I have been free labor.
Unpaid time off.
Volunteer work is does not pay well.
It's true.
It doesn't pay at all, actually.
That is a t-shirt.
But at least I got all of my volunteer hours done. Community service. Got myself 300 hours this summer. You can't joke about that.
There you go. Wait, do you count the hours when you were sleeping too? Because that's a good deal.
Actually, no. That was the number that they gave us to bring back to all of our high schools. Not like I had one to bring it back to.
Okay.
But they handed. Yeah.
Mom.
They handed us back cards as we were getting on the bus, and I'm like, I don't really need this, but at least I could verify that I did in fact serve families for 300 hours this summer. I'll take that.
Yep. That's cool. Well, I love these summer episodes. They're just so chill and fun. But Hayden, why don't you just go ahead and tell us just some of the books you've been reading over the summer and your thoughts?
So I'm a bit of a guy who doesn't read as much as Cooper. I didn't inherit Cooper's inhumane ability to speed read.
Because we don't have the same parents. You haven't inherited anything from me.
That's not how it works, Cooper. I don't think you know how genetics work.
You said you have not inherited. How is it physically possible for you to have inherited something from me?
I don't think you should be questioning that. Anyway, back on my subject. I only fully read 3 books. I started 2 other books that I'm kind of trying to trudge through, but very slowly. So, the first book was the 4th book in the Chronicles of Prydain, Terran Wanderer, which was a very weird book for the series. He was kind of just being a simp half the way, but hey, it's still a pretty fun book.
Oh, and for the people out there, why don't you tell them what the Chronicles of Prydain is?
Okay. So, the Chronicles of Prydain are about not just any kind of pig keeper, an assistant pig keeper. It's a fantasy book in which people fight darkness. It's basically Lord of the Rings if Lord of the Rings was pig keeper, Rerun of the King, exactly. And honestly, it's a really fun series. I would definitely recommend it. The second book is probably the best one, next to the 5th book. Yeah. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to hear my thoughts on Terran Wanderer. And it's the 4th book, yeah. I really like the arc with him and the poor guy. I forget his name. He's forgettable. No, not the potter. The farmer. The guy who thought it was his dad. Oh, yeah. I honestly wanted him to actually be his dad. Okay. All right. So, basically, Terran goes on this journey to find his lineage or bloodline, basically, because he wants to marry a princess, and apparently you need noble lineage, which I'm like, you don't need a noble lineage, you need good looks, man. So basically, he goes on this whole little journey, and he meets all these cool people that later tie in pretty well to the 5th book. Yeah. And he earns the name Wander, and then he meets this poor dude who's like, I am your father, and he's like, no way. And so then apparently he's not, and he dies, which is kind of sad. But I really wish he was, because it kind of humbled Terran. I don't know. Tehran sounds funny. And it kind of humbled Tehran. I guess I'm saying Tehran. I keep laughing. But it really humbled him and kind of brought him down. And then at the end, he doesn't even know his bloodline. It's just like a pool of water. He's looking for this mirror, but the mirror is a pool of water. I'm like, whoa, the symbolism goes crazy.
It literally is like the inspiration for Rey's cave in The Last Jedi. That's kind of what happens. That is literally what happens. He walks up to the mirror, right? It's just full of water. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then he starts snapping, and there are thousands of copies of himself. And, no, that's not what happens. But
yeah. It was still really good though. I like the main bad guy. I also forget his name. It's been a while. No, the pirate guy, the funny man. I don't know. He was kind of a big mercenary dude, but he eventually ran away. Overall, a 7.5 out of 10 would recommend book. Do you want me to move on to the next book?
How many books do you have, Tanner? Because if we have a lot, we can just kind of cycle around.
I personally don't have a lot, As I said, 300 service hours.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and knock a couple of mine out maybe, and then you can swing around to yours.
Sounds good.
Let's be honest. I have a couple books. So I got ambitious early on in the summer, and summer flew by. And so what happened is I have four books going right now, and I've not finished one of them. So I finished several books over the summer, but I am halfway through or partway through or almost done with a couple books. So I'll do a couple minor ones, and then I'll kick it over to Tanner, and we can come back to me, and I'll do the big ones. So some of the minor ones, I'm rereading Lord of the Rings. So I started Fellowship like in May, and I'm in Two Towers, so kind of slow pace. But I read some on the train to Edinburgh, which was a surreal experience, and it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And I'm really enjoying the Ents. I am solidly on the fact that the Ents are one of my favorite fantasy creatures of Tolkien. And by the way, I think that it's heavily implied they kind of fertilize the Shire.
I think so as well.
So like, because there's like this part, and I didn't pick up on it earlier, but what's his name? Fangorn? Yeah. Fangorn says, have you seen the Entwives, right? And that leads into the whole explanation. And as Merry and Pippin are explaining to him the Shire, he says, oh, well, that sounds like something they would like. And so I'm like, okay, this is kind of, And so I think that's really cool, actually. So I really love the Ents, but it's really fun. Obviously, Tolkien is great. So another book that I read over the summer is a book called Mere Christendom he's a pastor. His name's Doug Wilson. I don't know if you've heard of Doug Wilson, Tanner. His son is Indy Wilson.
I do know of Doug Wilson.
Anyway, he wrote a book. He wrote a book on like a quasi-theocracy. So not theocracy as like you would understand it, or like you would picture with like the Muslim countries like Iran and things like that. But it's kind of a Christian. Like, what if we had a Christian nation kind of thing? So it's like semi-Christian nationalist stuff, I guess, but not the things that the leftist media tells you is Christian nationalism. But like it's a really interesting book because it's like, listen, do you think Christ wants nations to be pagan, or do you think he wants nations to be Christians? And he tries to make the claim like all nations are theocracy. It just depends on what the theos is. Is it the true God, the triune God, or is it some pagan thing, or is it the state or mankind itself? So anyway, it's a really interesting book on like it's just a lot of musings on theocracy and Christ as head over everything, including the state. So I think it's well-reasoned, well-argued, and thought-provoking. So recommend it there. And then final, like, small book. I picked up a book in London called Guards. So it's by fantasy author Terry Pratchett. It's one of the Discworld books. I don't know if you've heard of Discworld, Tanner.
I had a friend mention it to me like a week ago.
Yeah, it's actually it's a pretty expansive fantasy series. Terry Pratchett's a pretty famous author who died recently, but he's more of a comedy writer. And so there are some laugh-out-loud moments in this book, but it's just a whimsical fantasy adventure that's a comedy, and it follows these guards in this city, kind of their misadventures and things like that. So it's a ton of fun. I recommend it, and I'm about 2/3 the way through that one. So that's one I kind of picked up along the way and haven't finished yet. So, all right, well, Tanner, give us your book.
My book is the same series that it has been for the past how many months, Cooper? It's still Wheel of Time, folks.
Hang on, let me think. This is November. Is it November?
That sounds
October.
No.
It's got to be October.
I remember I started it at the Tulsa tournament, so this would have been.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
'Cause I started in December, and you
started in December.
You'd already read books by then.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess I started in November or September then.
Yeah.
Something around the fall-ish area.
It was late fall.
Late
I
fall.
think. Yeah.
Sounds about right. Anyways, I think that puts me at like 8 months now. 8 months, 8 books.
Yeah.
Or I guess now it's 10 books. But pretty on par. Halfway through the 10th book right now. Enjoying it. Love it very much.
Have you gotten through the slog yet? I've heard that books 7 through 10 are the kind of the slog books.
I haven't finished the slog part yet. It's taking a lot of courage for me to be able to pick it up right now. I haven't picked it up for, I think, definitely not a week, but like within 2 or 3 weeks probably. I haven't picked it up since I got back from camp, which is probably a problem, but I need to get on that. I've been reading Wheel of Time. The plot is definitely getting somewhere. I'm feeling the end of the slog. I think we're almost there. I'm very much hoping that we're almost there. But I also read Around the World in 80 Days. In between that,
that's right. We talked about
that. I
did
finish that. I loved that.
Okay, cool.
But then what was?
Have you read Around the World in 80 Days, Tanner? Or 80? Sorry.
No.
I'm trying. I just read one other thing. Oh, I read I read the Theogony by Hesiod.
Oh, that's right.
For school. That was really interesting. I'm not gonna lie. It was like reading a theology book, but for pagans.
Pagans.
It was like,
Yeah.
what is this? It was the most perverted, messed up thing that I have honestly ever read. Not gonna lie. Like,
Yeah.
it was something. So just envision
Yeah,
essentially a genealogy of gods compiled into poetry, and
there you go.
going very deeply into how and what they did. It was.
Yeah, I think the epics are really fascinating because we're going to be reading, the epics in Greek mythology this year, and we'll be doing some of it on the podcast. But I find that stuff, in terms of just disgusting. But also, it helps you understand how far I think that the world has been, honestly, Christianized since then, our world is not great right now. And especially in the last, 50 years, it's deteriorated quite a bit. It's become a lot less Christian. But at the same time, these gods don't hold really any sway anymore. Christ, as I think the Bible says, has put them to open shame. And so it's really fascinating to see how the pagan gods just died after Christ. And so but we have to understand that when we read Theogony and the Iliad and the Odyssey, Christ came into that world. That's what the people believed when Christ came into the world to save us, and that's what overall he's saved society from. Obviously, he's given us personal salvation and justification, but on a societal level, he has helped eradicate a lot of that stuff. Now, obviously, there are still problems, and there still will be forevermore until he returns. But so I don't know. It's fascinating stuff.
Very fascinating. Anyways, just a very complex diet of literature that I've been reading this summer.
Yep. Yeah. I finished the 7th book of Wheel of Time, late June, I think.
Yeah.
And I read book 6 in May. So, I'm kind of stopping so I can finish my summer reading, and then I'll get back into it afterwards.
Yes.
Because I still want to get to some Lewis books.
Yes, for
hopefully, before school takes over. So I gotta just pick a book and knock it out. And then I'll keep going. So, okay. Well, Tanner. Nope. Hayden. Sorry. You're up.
It's my turn. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the 5th and final book in the Chronicles of Prydain. That is The High King. It's The High King. Yeah. Going into this book, so I'll give you some context. I went on a vacation, 2 weeks, up into Arkansas, Kentucky, and then Florida. Big, weird, wheel kind of shape that we did. We went back and forth a lot. And so on that trip, I brought 3 books. I brought Terra and Wander, The High King, and Black Ships Before Troy. So I read Terra and Wander, and I was like, oh, that's a good book. I can't wait to the next one. But I decided, stupidly, to read Black Ships Before Troy in between. And so the entire time I read Black Ship Before Troy, I was just thinking about what could be possibly in The High King. And when I got there, oh man, this book was great. There was a lot of chapters that I was just genuinely surprised at. I read this book in 2-3 days, just sitting on the beach, reading it. And man, I'm happy I read it like that, because it was just such a great book. There were so many good chapters. There was a chapter where, kind of like the love triangle character Prince Run dies, and he dies, he's a silly little character, but the way he just dies is just, I don't know, it seemed emotional to me. And he died in battle.
I just want to say I love that description. 15-year-olds trying to describe something, and he's like, it felt emotional to me. It just, I don't understand it. But.
It's poetry. It rhymes.
That's hilarious.
I didn't really like the ending with Aran. I feel like they built up this villain, and then he just kind of died. But, I mean, I have the same problem with Sauron, but I like Sauron a lot. He's cool. Yeah. But, nonetheless, this is a great book. Would recommend. 8.5, marching to a 9 out of 10.
Cool. We're going to do Black Ships.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do Black Ships Before Troy. So, going into this, I already knew this story. I've read the Odyssey books, or the ones by I forget her name. I think that it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I got introduced to the Greek myths as well, because the person who wrote like the first series that I ever read as a kid, the Magic Treehouse series, has a lot of Greek mythology stuff. So she did some stuff on the Odyssey, like a kid's version of it, which is basically like, I don't know, paper thin, because it's not very kid appropriate.
I mean, yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. But that was also my introduction to it, and so I already knew the story going in, and I was like, I don't know if it's gonna be as good. And it wasn't as good. It was still pretty good though. It added a lot of scenes that were not in the Mary Pope Osborne one. But other than that, it was a solid book, and hey, it's Greek mythology. It's cool stories. It's something, that's for sure. All right, I'll move it on to whoever's next.
All right, well, it brings it back to me. I forgot to mention I've been reading one other book. This one is I will continue to kind of plod through. It's a theology book. It's called The Wonderful Works of God. It's by a wonderful Reformed theologian who lived during the 1800s. It's Dutch. It's been translated, and so he has a Reformed theology. It's called Reformed Dogmatics. It's like actual systematic theology. And this book is kind of the condensed version, even though it's still like 650 pages. So it's kind of the quote-unquote introduction to systematic theology, but it's just wonderful. It's great. I love it a lot, and so I've just kind of been slowly picking my way through it. And Tanner, I really think I could just quote all of it for apologetics. I want to so bad, but it's great for that. So, okay, I guess I will go ahead and do Persuasion, the real reason that many people clicked on this episode. So, Persuasion is very good. I will be honest, I have 5 chapters left, so I'm sorry I didn't finish it. I will check back in when I finish it, but here are my thoughts. So you have to understand, this is Persuasion is Jane Austen's last book, okay? And so you also understand that the protagonist, Anne Elliot, is basically just Jane Austen straight up. So a lot of people think that she wrote this book as kind of wish fulfillment for her, because what happened to Jane Austen was she never married. There was a supposed engagement, I think, at one point in her life, but it didn't go through. Something happened. And so she kind of died in her 40s, but she was living with her brother, I believe, and her kids, or nieces and nephews. So this book is kind of like a what if Jane Austen got married instead of became an old maid, right? So this is what happens is Anne Elliot is the daughter of kind of a minor nobleman who's Walter Elliot. And when Anne Elliot is like in her early 20s, she meets a guy named eventually Captain Wentworth. He's just a Mr. Wentworth then, all right? And they fall in love, but then her basically best friend, her surrogate mother, since her mother passed away, basically says, this is not a good match for you. You're so high up in society, and he's not, so this is not a good match. So they break off the engagement. But then 7 years later, when the book actually takes place, or kicks off, that's in the book, but the story doesn't really kick off until a couple chapters in. It's 7 years later. Sir Walter Elliot has not managed his affairs very well. The place they live falls into disrepair, and he's got to basically rent it out in order to live because they've fallen so far. So at this point, Anne is not looking so good because nobody has ever paid her any mind anymore. And so 7 years later, she's almost 30, and back in those days, that basically meant you were doomed to be an old maid for the rest of your life. And that's not good. Now, several things happen to bring the Wentworth that she fell in love with earlier back into her kind of societal fold, where she's been hanging out with these people called the Musgroves and the Crofts and things like that. Anyway, so it's like, okay, are they going to get back together? Is Captain Wentworth going to propose to Anne Elliot again? And so that's where I'll leave it for now. This is the general plot, but in terms of Jane Austen, some of her best tension arises in this book that I've read so far, I think. Just in the tension of being in Anne's point of view, and Captain Wentworth is in the room, and the tension of him not wanting to acknowledge their previous relationship, and everything happening is just so awesome. It's so engrossing to read. And then as well, another excellent thing that she does in this book is just have a very relatable protagonist. Anne Elliot is extremely relatable. She doesn't have many flaws, but she's just because she's Jane Austen, obviously, so she wouldn't. But she has a lot of relatable qualities. The side characters, are a lot of fun. You can hate a lot, you can love a lot, even though they're dumb. It's the kind of typical Jane Austen motley crew of side characters. I will say, if I were to offer up some small criticisms, the only thing that I think Jane Austen the only flaw that I think she has, she sometimes tells instead of shows. She sometimes summarizes something that happens instead of actively showing us. So at the very beginning of the book, when Anne and Wentworth fall in love, at the very beginning, we don't get to see that. Like, it's a couple paragraphs of just they fell in love. And so we don't get to build that relationship and then see it fall apart because Lady Russell, who's again the surrogate mother, drove them apart. And so I feel like that could have really established why we want Anne to get back in love with Captain Wentworth, because we meet him really for the first time 7 years later when he comes back. And he's really good, and he's a good guy, and he's got great manners, obviously. But it would have been so much better if we had built a relationship with him before. So that's kind of the only flaw so far, but otherwise it's great. I think that actually this is one of the only Jane Austen books where I was in doubt over whether she was going to get the guy or not. And so it really is a very good novel in terms of tension and in terms of will they, won't they, actually. So it took me 1 or 2 chapters to get into, but once I did, it's Jane Austen. It's great. I love it a lot. So that's my Persuasion review, and then we'll come back once I finish it. So, all right. Well, that's all I have. Tanner, I don't know if you have any other books, or Hayden, do you have any others?
Just the ones.
Oh, Hayden has a couple.
Ooh, go Hayden.
So, these books that I'm about to say, I've only read the first. I mean, for one of them, I've read the first 5 chapters, but the other one I've only started the first. So, I'll go ahead and start with 100 Cupboards was one of the books I tried to read this summer, but eventually ended up failing and drifting apart from it, and I forgot what I did. I think I just watched a bunch of movies with my dad at night instead of reading. Which, hey, it gets screening content, so I don't care. But, yeah, I mean, I've heard it's a really good book, and I'm more hyped now that the more I've heard about it, and probably gonna, when I get home, binge it, or not binge it, binge read it. Yeah. But, yeah, the other one is, I'm a bit of a nerd. I like Star Wars Legends books, and I got one called The Rule of Two. It's the second book in the Bane series. It's pretty interesting so far. I've never really read a Star Wars novel, and I think it's just an interesting perspective to take.
Well, I think that's about it. I think that this might be our last summer episode until we kind of get back in the groove. There might be one more. I don't know. I got to read some Lewis. And if I can read it in time, there might be another Lewis episode before we start school back. So, to summarize again, very likely we'll be recording in our co-op, which will include Tanner, Isaiah, myself, and Tanner's mom. And then hopefully it seems like we're going to have another classmate who we all know and respect a lot, and he's going to be on the podcast as well when we record in class. Right, Tanner?
That is still up in the air, for the record.
Right. Right. That's still up in the air.
He is not responding to my texts, folks. So there's that.
He's ghosting Tanner. So that's what we hope to do. But we will be scattering in some other episodes that have not been recorded in our class. They will not be on the Iliad or the Odyssey or what have you, or Theogony or something like that. And we'll announce that next episode because you guys are gonna really love it. You guys are gonna really love it. I'm not even gonna tell Hayden what it is because.
Tell me.
No, I'm not gonna tell you. But it's gonna be a lot of fun, right, Tanner? Come on, hype it up. It's gonna be great.
It will be fun. It will be really fun.
Yep. And so yeah, stick around. We'll be getting back into the typical groove of basically a weekly episode coming out every week because that's what weekly means. So let's do some.
I love how he turns to me when he says that.
Save me, Aiden, save me.
There's only one person that would do that, folks, and it's Cooper Cobbs.
I can't do that. Okay, let's do some donor shoutouts. So, one thing before we do donor shoutouts. Happy birthday to my father. The day we record this, July 26th, it's his birthday. He's old. It's his 46th birthday. So
wow,
it's pretty old.
What an old man,
Yeah, I know. That's right. So happy birthday to you, Dad. I hope you enjoy the book that I got you for your birthday. So, okay, we're gonna do some donor shoutouts now.
Here's the question:
Tanner,
what book did you get him? You can't just say.
Yeah.
So
I got him The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Cormac McCarthy just passed away recently. He's the author of like No Country for Old Men, The Road, All the Pretty Horses, Blood Meridian, things like that. So
Okay.
these books are I've heard are dark, but they're good. So I got my dad The Road. Now Tanner, over on the screening, we did an episode, and thanks to several things that happened, we ended up joking about Rerun of the King. So in my notes, we were supposed to talk about Return of the King at one point, but it autocorrected to Rerun of the King, which I thought was a hilarious comedic fantasy novel making fun of people, doing Return of the King things.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did donor shoutouts, and Hayden made up a story about Rerun of the King.
It was amazing.
It was amazing. But Hayden, now you get to do the same thing with Booking It donor shoutouts.
No shot. I get more characters.
Yes,
Okay.
but I don't think we're gonna do Rerun of the King. We can do a different story if you want.
Okay, how about
We could do-
3 Towers?
No. Okay, let's do a Jane Austen like romance novel. Okay, not the modern stuff. Not the modern stuff.
Got it. Is this a good time to mention I've only read like a few Jane Austen books?
You haven't even read any Jane Austen books.
Wait, what?
Have you read Pride and Prejudice, Emma?
Oh no.
No, you haven't. Okay. Okay.
I don't
So
know my
Tanner,
authors.
why don't you give us like a general plot structure for Hayden to make a story out of with our donors?
Yes, I've got one. There is a group of sisters that live in a home where they are encouraged to marry very young, and they eventually feel betrayed by other people and find love in the most unexpected of places, aka people that they hate.
This sounds like a modern day romance novel, the back cover. So
This sounds like a poster that's on the one of the rooms in it's Little Women, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's a poster in the game room. Okay. They marry people that they hate. Ooh, this can be fun. Okay. So I'm checking. Okay. Okay. Mother Nana tells Wayla. Oh shoot, I'm being too loud. Okay. Mother Nana tells Wayla, Isaiah's grandma and Miss Laura that they must marry young. And they're like, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. And so they meet lots of cool people like Anna, Emily, wow, what I can't English today, guys. Becky, Lizzie, and Keenan. But eventually find the people they hate the most. Van Pappy, Isaiah's granddad, and Mr. Mike, and end up marrying them. And that's the story, folks.
well, not quite what I expected, but that's okay. No, it was fun. Wow, what do I say after that? That was glorious. Yeah. Okay. well, I think that's what donor shoutouts is going to be for the rest of the ever. We're going to be making up stories with you guys in them, so, and maybe we'll be better prepared next time. I don't know. Debatable. Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening to that. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed the story at the end as well. Support us over at patreon.com/bookinit, and you too could be featured in the next patron story / donor shoutouts. We'll see you guys next time on an episode, either about Lewis or about a school book or about the special mystery thing that we're going to be doing during the fall. Anything else to say, Tanner?
No, not really,
Not really? Okay, one more thing to say. Today I was driving Caden around.
Oh, no.
We went to the Frisco Library, which is a lot of fun because it's...
for sure. I still haven't spent enough time in that place, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Which story?
Can I tell the story?
Oh, okay.
The robot.
Oh, okay, no.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
it's another story. We'll do it anyway. Okay, I was driving. We're getting back on the Dallas North Tollway, right? And I'm about to turn on out of the library exit onto the tollway, or onto Dallas Parkway, and I'm waiting because it's dangerous, and I gotta make sure that I have enough space so I don't get hit. And then Hayden just says, "Book it," and I was like, "No, don't ever say that to anyone." And he goes, "Well, you told me to say that in the podcast. Like, keep on booking it." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, well,
That's hilarious.
not here." So,
I
all to
love
say,
that.
until next time,
Keep on booking it.
except when you're getting on the Dallas North Tollway.